You were standing at the kitchen sink with the tap running and you were watching money go down the drain. That is not a figure of speech. Every gallon that comes out of that faucet has a number attached to it, and that number lands in your mailbox once a month with your name on it. Maybe you have watched the rate creep up year after year. Maybe last summer they put you on restrictions, told you which days you could water, told you a foot of green grass was now a privilege. And the whole time, 8 inches of rain was falling on your roof, running straight into the gutter, off the property, gone. You paid for water you didn't need because the water that was free landed on your house and you had no way to catch it. I want to tell you about a man named Amos who farms a piece of ground outside Intercourse in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Amos has never paid a water bill in his life, not because he is on a well with an electric pump, but because the corrugated steel roof on his barn and the corrugated steel roof on his house feed a system of pipe and tank that gives him every drop of water his family and his animals use. He showed it to me on a gray afternoon when it had just started to drizzle, and I stood there and I listened to the water move through that pipe, and I understood something. I had been paying for something my own grandfather collected for free. Let me tell you how I got there, because I did it the expensive way first. When my wife and I bought our place, the well was bad. The water came up with iron in it and a smell I won't describe to you over dinner. So I did what you were supposed to do. I called the people you call. I got quotes on a new well, deeper, and the number that came back was north of $9,000 before they even hit water, with no guarantee what they'd find down there. I bought the rain barrels too, the pretty ones from the garden center, $80 a piece, and they clogged with leaves inside a month and bred mosquitoes inside too. By the end of that first season, I had spent the better part of $1,100, and I had a yard full of green plastic that didn't work and a well that still smelled like a struck match. That was the summer I drove to Amos's. Here's the thing nobody explains to you, and it is the whole foundation, so stay with me. Every square foot of roof, for every inch of rain that falls on it, sheds a little more than half a gallon of water, roughly 6/10 of a gallon. That sounds small until you do the arithmetic on a whole roof. A modest house with 1,000 square feet of catchment in a single 1-inch rain sheds around 600 gallons. 600 gallons from one ordinary rain. A region that gets 40 inches a year is dropping somewhere in the neighborhood of 24,000 gallons on that 1,000 square feet over a year, and you are letting almost every drop of it run into the street. The corrugated steel roof matters here, and Amos knew exactly why. A smooth metal roof sheds clean, water runs off it fast, and carries almost nothing with it. An asphalt shingle roof, by contrast, sheds grit and petroleum and gives the water a taste and a film. The old-timers roofed in steel and tin, partly because steel was a rain catcher, not just a shelter. The roof was half the waterworks. The second thing Amos showed me is the part the rain barrel people never tell you, and it is the difference between clean water and a problem. It is called a first flush. When rain begins, the first water off the roof carries the dust and the pollen and whatever a bird left up there since the last storm. So you build a little trap into the pipe, a vertical section that fills first and holds that dirty initial water back before the clean water ever reaches your tank. The early dirty water goes into the trap. The clean water that follows runs past it into storage. It is gravity and sequence doing the work, nothing more. No power, no filter cartridge, no moving part to fail. Now, when I went looking to confirm this wasn't just one farmer's habit, I found it had been written down a long time ago. The United States Department of Agriculture put out a farmer's bulletin back in the 1930s on water supply for the farm home, and a good portion of it is given over to cisterns and roof catchment with diagrams of exactly this kind of setup. The roof, the conveyance pipe, the settling trap, the covered tank. This was not fringe. This was the federal government's own advice to rural families, printed and mailed out by the thousands, because in those years, a great many American homes ran on rainwater and ran on it wells. The knowledge was mainstream. It was ordinary. It was expected that a competent household could catch its own water. So what happened to it? Nothing dramatic, nothing you could point to. After the war, the lines came through. Rural electrification put a pump in every well and a meter on every line, and the municipal systems reached out into the countryside, and somewhere in there, the cistern quietly fell out of the extension bulletins. It wasn't disproven, it was just no longer mentioned. And you can understand why if you follow the money instead of the conspiracy. There is no marketing budget for a length of pipe under a downspout. Nobody sends a salesman to your door selling rainfall. A water meter, on the other hand, bills you every single month for the rest of your life. and a deep well, drilled by a contractor, is a one-time payment to him and a recurring electric cost to run the pump. The catch was never that the old way stopped working. The catch is that the old way doesn't generate a monthly invoice, and a thing that doesn't generate an invoice slowly disappears from the literature that companies help write. Now, if you are sitting there in a house you already own, thinking this is for somebody building a homestead from scratch, I want you to hear me, because this next part is built for exactly your situation. You do not need to start over. You do not need a permit, in most places, for a simple catchment off your own roof, and you do not need to hire a soul. Here is the whole build, and here is where the $30 comes in. Off the bottom of your existing gutter, where the downspout drops, you run 3-inch or 4-inch PVC. 4-inch is better because it never chokes. A 10-foot stick runs you about $12 to $15 at any hardware store, and a couple of elbows are $1 or $2 each. For your first flush, you stand a vertical length of that same 4-inch pipe, capped at the bottom with a cleanout fitting, and you let it fill before the line carries on to your tank. That pipe, those elbows, that cleanout cap, the whole conveyance trick comes in right around $30. For storage, the cheapest honest option is a food-grade tote, what folks call an IBC, 275 gallons, and you can find a clean used one for $80 to $120. A galvanized stock tank from the feed store works too, and looks better doing it. Screen the inlet with fine mesh, the kind that keeps a mosquito out. Window screen does fine, and you have closed the loop. $30 of pipe off a roof you already own, and the rain starts working for you instead of running away from you. But here is the part Amos almost didn't tell me, the part that separates water you irrigate with from water you'd actually want to drink. And it is so simple, it is almost funny. Rainwater is soft. It is slightly acidic, and it carries almost no minerals, which is why straight rainwater can taste flat and can be a little aggressive on metal over time. The plain folk fix this the way their grandmothers did. They suspend a small sack of crushed limestone, sometimes oyster shell, down in the tank. The water sits against that stone and slowly takes up calcium, which gently raises the pH and gives the water back the minerals the sky stripped out of it. Some of them tuck in a bundle of hardwood charcoal alongside it, real lump charcoal from their own fire, which quietly pulls odor and color out of the water as it sits. A few dollars of crushed limestone and a handful of charcoal you made yourself, and water that fell out of a cloud comes out of that tank, clean, balanced, and sweet. That is the step that doesn't make it into the diagrams. That is the part you learn on a porch. This is one technique among many that got quiet rather than getting beaten. And there is a whole community of people now, folks in their 50s and 60s and 70s, who are pulling these systems back out of the old bulletins and putting them to work. I would like you to be specific with me in the comments, because I read them. Tell me 3 things. Tell me the rough square footage of the roof you'd catch from. Tell me what part of the country you're in, and tell me how many inches of rain a year your area gets. Give me those 3 numbers, and I will tell you roughly how many gallons a year you are letting run into the street right now. And if you want to keep recovering what was handed down and then misplaced, subscribe. Not to do me a favor, but to stand with the people who refuse to let this knowledge go quiet a second time. Next week, I'm going to show you something the Holmes County families have been doing since well before electric pumps. A way of moving that stored water uphill into the house with no power at all, using a device invented in the 1790s that runs on nothing but the fall of the water itself and a single moving part. It will lift water for you day and night for years, and it costs about the price of a good dinner to build. You will want to see it. Before I let you go, I want to walk back through one thing, because every time I post a build like this, somebody writes me and says they tried it and the water came out cloudy or tasted off, and almost every single time, it is the same 2 mistakes. The first is that they ran it off an asphalt shingle roof and skipped the first flush, so the grit and the shingle oil went straight into the tank. If your roof is shingle, you can still do this, but the first flush is not optional for you. It is everything, and you size that standpipe bigger, not smaller. The second mistake is the barrel. People grab whatever drum is in the barn, a chemical drum, a dyed plastic tote, and they wonder why the water goes green and strange. You want food grade. You want it opaque so sunlight can't feed algae, and you want that inlet screened tight. Get the roof clean, get the first flush right, get the tank dark and food grade, and you will have water as good as anything that ever came out of a tap, falling on you for free, the way it fell on your grandparents, the way it has been falling all along while somebody quietly sold it back to you by the gallon.